Hey, what's up, and welcome back to a brand new Pick a Side live reaction. We are here after the Pacers took a 2-1 series lead in the NBA Finals. I mean, at this rate, if they keep splitting one game here, one game there, it's going to end up in Pacers in 6
Pacers in 6, or wouldn't it be
or
in
7.
7?
Yeah, it'd be either or,
7.
but the
Yeah, yeah,
Pacers would
yeah.
win. Basically, at this pace, the Pacers would win. This was an excellent basketball game. The
Mhm.
Pacers won 116 to 107, and there was nitpicking even from me going on in the first two games, where in game one, they won off a buzzer beater. But for the first two games, you felt comfortable with the way that OKC was guarding Indiana and their offense. This was the first game that it felt like, okay, maybe a switch turned on for Indiana. Offensively, they pressed all the right buttons, but I thought where they were even more impressive, like we're going to talk a variety of different aspects of this game, but where they were most impressive was just on the defensive side of the ball. They
Yeah.
forced Shade to a career playoff high 6 turnovers. Chet Holmgren didn't get going outside of the first quarter. J Dub was their most consistent offensive player, but this was a game where OKC shot better from three, percentage wise. They rebounded better, but where they lost was the amount of turnovers they had, transition, and who would have known that the Pacers playing fast and playing ball pressure, which is OKC style of play, was also the exact game plan that the Pacers needed to implement to bother OKC as much as they did for them to have this outcome.
Yeah, this game was awesome, and I think a lot of it was, some things we previewed coming into the series, specifically about the Pacers defense, right? We talked about how, yeah, they don't have a Lou Dort. They don't have, a Chet or a Hartenstein compared to a Miles Turner, for example. But they have a lot of good defenders. They have multiple bodies they can throw at you, and they're going to try their ass off for 48 minutes and 94 feet they're going to be able to cover. And we saw that throughout this entire game. We've seen it really throughout this entire series. These are now 2 out of 3 games. If you're the Pacers, you feel really good about how you guarded Shea. In the first game, he has 30 shots. He ends up scoring 38 points. Today's game, he ends up with 24 points on 20 shots. Like you mentioned, 6 turnovers to only 4 assists. He was just out of his game for a majority, really all of this game. He never really found a consistent rhythm. He only gets to the free throw line 6 times, 1 for 3 from 3. This is what you need to do if you're the Pacers and you want to guard Shea. You can't have him, playing one-on-one. Number one, I thought they were super aggressive when it came to double teams. It felt like every time Shea turned his back to the basket, trying to get into the post, they were sending double teams hard at him. And then from there, they're saying, listen, we're going to turn you into a playmaker. I think they're okay with a lot of these guys shooting. I know Lou Dort was sensational, started 4 for 4, but a lot of the guys that are out on the court, whether it's Chet who had a terrible day shooting, of course Lou Dort, even though Caruso has been a good 3-point shooter in these playoffs, is another guy that will rather you having to make a couple passes to a Caruso or a Dort rather than Shea playing one-on-one, because that's just not going to be a recipe for success if you're the Pacers. So as much as we've talked about their high powered offense and how they could run up and down the court and they could just, kill you by the 3-pointers. There's a lot of things we've seen throughout these playoffs. It was their defense in this game. In that fourth quarter, sure, they scored 32 points and they were able to turn, I think it was a 5-point deficit into a 9-point win. They held OKC to 18 points. And I have to go back and check the first 2 games, but I believe that's the least amount of points that OKC has scored throughout these NBA finals. So the defense was the number one thing that stuck out to me, because when you're playing good defense and you're getting rebounds, you're able to get in transition. And that's where the Pacers can really, really kill you. So that was the biggest thing that stood out to me, on top of Tyrese Haliburton. I think after game 2, deservedly, he got a lot of shit. You can't be the number one option. You can't be the superstar and have 5 points going into the fourth quarter. But I thought what he did in this game, which was the most important, was he was quick with his decisions when it came to scoring the basketball. I felt like in game 2, it was a lot of, I'm going to try to break down the defense. I'm going to dribble the hell out of the basketball, and I'm going to try to find my shot. And although he wasn't aggressive in those first 3 quarters, there was just some wasteful possessions in there where he was trying too much to try to find his shot. In this game, I felt like when he got the ball in his hands, he knew what he wanted to do. Whether it was getting downhill, he hit multiple floaters, he was hitting his 3-point shot, but all of it came within rhythm, and all of it was really quick decision making that we've seen Tyrese Haliburton do throughout these playoffs. So compare that with what we saw in game 2 and even really in game 1, because outside of that game winner, it's not like he had a sensational offensive game. This is his best game in the final so far.
No player is perfect, and Halliburton, while having some deficiencies in his game, I don't think it's enough to not acknowledge how incredible of a player he is. I'm already wrong about this series. I had OKC in 5. It's clearly not going to be that no more. Now, the only way it ends in 5 is if the Pacers win in 5. One thing I'll say is that OKC has bounced back. They're a resilient group. They were down 2-1 to the Denver Nuggets in the second round. So I'm not going to write their eulogy after this loss. This is a perfect case scenario if you're the Pacers. You steal the first game and then you win the first game at home. They already finished their job by stealing one on the road. And then to make this big of a statement to where I thought they figured everything out. This was such a complete game from their offense, from their defense, from their bench. Benedict Mathurin led the team in scoring with 27 points. And Mathurin is just one of those guys that he has all the talent in the world. And when he gets hot, he just can't miss. Obi Toppin made a contribution. TJ McConnell throughout the game, first ever player with the stat line of 5 assists and 5 steals off the bench. And I thought his most incredible play was the steal he had on Caruso on the inbound. That was one of like the momentum swingers of it. Their energy off the bench just outmatched anything that OKC had to offer. And Tyrese Haliburton, every bad game that every player has, specifically him, because he is the most polarizing player in these playoffs, is getting nitpicked. His incredible games, I will say people overrate them because those are his absolute highs and his lows are very low. But ultimately, what you get consistently from Halliburton is a player that is an elite general who is leading to efficient and elite offensive production. And when he plays as aggressive as he played tonight, I do think he's a superstar. He did not hesitate at the at the sight of shots in this game. Anytime Hallie got a slither of space, he was letting that thing go and he was shooting the ball. Those floaters downhill, he was connecting on those. And when he is hitting his shots from deep, it gives the defense more angst to pressure him, and then that leads to easier drives from him when he's attempting to attack the basket. The best version of Hallie is the aggressive version of Hallie, and I just don't think that there's not a way to not call this guy a superstar, at least superstar point guard, with the way that he's generated an elite offense for the Pacers. And I understand everybody's definition for superstar is different. I'm a bit more lenient. He is the head of an elite efficient offense. And I thought he got challenged on defense tonight and he responded in an incredible way. This wasn't just an offensive performance from him. This was a complete two-way performance from him.
Yeah, he's had moments in these playoffs too. I believe it was in the Buck series as well. He had multiple possessions in a row where he was able to. He had a big stop and then a big steal in that series. That I can't remember which game it was off the top of my head, but big moments in the fourth quarter on defense where he stepped up, because we saw the Thunder do this a lot in game 2 and a ton in this game. He's going to get picked on, right? He's not one of the strongest defenders on the team. He still is, an average to below average defender. So he's going to get picked on, but he showed tonight that he's able to really hold his own. And I think that's going to be important, getting into those passing lanes, just, showing effort and having a body in front of a guy that's going to be trying to attack you. Because more often than not, he's guarding Cason Wallace, he's guarding Lou Dort, Caruso. He's not going to be someone who's obviously put on SGA or someone, or J-Dub, right? He's going to be put on those weaker offensive players, but he's going to be brought into action. The fact that he was able to hold his own was huge in this game. But I really think the changing point in this game, or the turning point, was that second quarter when TJ McConnell came in. Because up until that point, OKC felt like they had a pretty decent control of the game. They go into the second quarter up by 8 points. And then TJ comes in and he's just going crazy, right? On both ends. He's stealing inbound passes. He's being aggressive, getting 2 feet into the paint. He's hitting his little floaters in that kind of like 8-foot range. He's just being a pest. Defensively, he's up in your face. But the aggressiveness that he was showing, the energy he was playing with, And the ability he has to be able to get past guys just one-on-one and draw defenders into the paint made offense a lot easier for the Pacers that looked stagnant in the first quarter, only scoring 24 points. They turned it around, have a 40-point second quarter. That's got to be, one of the highest scoring quarters the Thunder have let up all playoffs long, to be that great defensively and have the Pacers with a lot of that, your backup point guard in there being that impactful. So I thought that second quarter really meant a lot to Indiana, just not only getting back into that game, but building a lead, because they mentioned on the broadcast, right? The series was 1-1, but the Pacers led the entire way. I think it led by a minute or minute and 15 seconds through the first two games, and the Thunder led for the remaining, 46, 47 minutes, or 90, whatever the times two. So the Pacers, although it was 1-1, we know how it went, right? Game one, they were trailing the whole time. Then they come back and hit the game-winning shot. Game two was basically belt to ass the whole game. So even though it was 1-1, I think if you're Indiana, and even after game two, we were kind of sitting here being like, oh, yeah, OKC dynasty, they're going to win the championship, just because it's like they dominated game one, it felt like, and they dominated game two. But this is a game that I think, of course, you need to win if you're the Pacers, but I think you need to win in this fashion too, right? This was a game going into the fourth quarter. It was anyone's game. You took control around the 5-6 minute mark, and you didn't look back. You didn't blow the lead. You were able to consistently add on to your lead. And then even in the last, minute, 2 minutes, there was opportunities for the Thunder to be able to come back in this game. They were just missing free throw after free throw and really shooting themselves in the foot more than anything. The Pacers were fouling so much that they were giving OKC an opportunity to come back, but the Pacers were missing free throws, a couple from J-Dub. But yeah, man, I'm excited that this is a series. I feel like it's proving the real basketball fans right, because I feel like most people that have been watching the playoffs closely this year thought that this is going to be an entertaining series. And I felt like a lot of people who just thought that, OKC's this dominating team thought, okay, it's going to be like, a 4-game series or an uncompetitive 5. Even if you had, the Thunder winning in 5 games, I always thought it was going to be competitive. But what the Thunder had shown throughout this season, regular season and postseason, it's really difficult, number one, to beat this team in general. But number two, it's really difficult to beat this team back to back. I have all the faith in the world that they're going to be able to come out in game 4 and tie it 2-2 going back to OKC. And that game 5 feels like that potentially be the series, with Indiana going back, of course, for game 6. But I'm just excited we're sitting here 2-1 Pacers lead, because after game 2, it felt like, man, this could go the wrong way quick, right? If OKC is able to get out to a big lead again early like they did in the previous game, is Indiana just going to kind of roll over? But that has not been the team they've been this entire season. That's not the player Haliburton has been. Siakam was great in this game as well. We haven't mentioned him yet, but 8 for 14. He was the one that really got the Pacers offense going. I think he had the first 2 or 3 buckets, just getting mismatches on him in that kind of paint area, in that, short post, short mid-range game, just hitting turnaround jumpers, just too big for a lot of the guys on that OKC team, but phenomenal as a number 2 there. And then you mentioned it, Benedict Mathurin. He's had an interesting playoffs. There was, times where he wasn't even playing a lot, but then the second half of that Knicks series, he really started to come alive. Tonight has the best game of his career, 27 points, 9 for 12 shooting. And he's so important for this team, because not only is, obviously a young player that's gaining all of his experience, but since Haliburton at times can not only not be aggressive, but of course struggle when it comes to creating his own shot, a lot of the time Indiana's looking at Pascal Siakam like, man, we really need you to create something here. When Benedict Mathurin is on, he is arguably their second best, sometimes their best shot creator, because he has a bag. He can score from all 3 levels. He is athletic. He can get downhill. So when he's going like this, and you have Pascal and Tyrese Haliburton with the defense you're playing, this is why the Pacers are in the position they are.
I feel like game 3 and game 2 flipped, where game 2 we got the Aaron Wiggins and Caruso game, and then their superpowers transferred over to Benedict Mathurin and TJ McConnell, and 2 bench players for the Pacers stole the show and was a big reason why they won this game. Hartenstein only played 18 minutes. I think that's pretty questionable for one of your highest paid players on the team. Maybe Mark Daigneault is getting the Joe Mazzulla treatment, where you have such an incredible roster that we are constantly questioning just how great of a coach you are, or is it the roster that you're coaching? Mazzulla kind of proved it wrong when he won a championship, and I guess that's not going to be totally proven wrong until Mark Daigneault does the same. But do you think that Daigneault is a great coach, or he's a good coach with a loaded roster?
It's so difficult because there's no real way of, I think, finding out the answer, because on one hand, you need to be able to, to coach your team. You need to have a good scheme. You need to be good, after timeouts and being able to talk to your players and communicate. And I think Dagnall does a really good job at that. The other part too is just execution, right? I feel like we talked about it a lot after year one with Joe Mazzulla in that Heat series. We're like, is Joe Mazzulla going to be the guy? You're down 0-3. I know you come back, but how are you down 0-3 in the first place? And my argument the whole time was, I just thought the players didn't play well, right? Like, I thought we just missed a ton of open shots. And overall, we could blame Mazzulla all we want, but the players have to be better. This Thunder team has been hyped up deservedly this entire season long, right? We were talking with Carson a few weeks back, like, where does this team rank in terms of all-time NBA teams, period? And that's before they played a single game in the NBA Finals. With that being said, there's a chance this roster just got a little bit overrated, right? Because when I'm looking at SGA, he's safe, right? He is the MVP, a top 3 player in the league. He's kind of out of this conversation. J-Dub has been, although great tonight, inconsistent throughout these whole playoffs. Chet Holmgren, not a great game tonight, inconsistent throughout these whole playoffs. He's shooting 10% from 3 of this series. The series against Denver, he shot 22%. So he's had multiple series in a row now where his shot has just, or excuse me, the Minnesota series, he shot very well. But 2 out of the last 3 series, his shot has just completely lost him. And then you have these awesome role players with, of course, Caruso and Aaron Wiggins and Cason Wallace. But it's still a super, super young team that went on a historic regular season. And now we're asking them to go from being a second-round playoff team to winning the championship, or else it's a complete failure. And what they did this season put them in that position, and they're in these shoes now because of how great they've been thus far. But it's difficult whether you win or you lose just to put it on one part of the team, right? Whether that's the roster, the coaching staff, the front office, SGA, whatever it might be, you win together and you lose together. I don't think up until this point, I've been looking at Mark and saying that he's done a poor job coaching, right? I think you could nitpick a couple things here and there, but for the most part, I think he's a really, really good head coach. I think most of OKC fans recognize that he's one of the better coaches in the NBA. But with that being said, it's about results. If you go out here and you lose to this Pacers team in 5 or 6 games, you're going to be looked at going into next season like you could be on the hot seat. If you turn this around, you win 3 straight, all of a sudden you have job security for the next 4 years, right? So it's going to be how the game ends up. Do you win? Do you lose? Whether it's right or wrong. But I think overall, I still trust Dagnall as one of the better head coaches in the NBA.
OKC still looks a little bit timid and unorganized on offense in the fourth quarters. This one was rough. It was a rough watch. It was a combination of feeling bad for OKC because of how awful they looked, but then also being really impressed by what the Pacers did. Obi Toppin had a huge block in transition where he showed off his athleticism. And then I thought the biggest defensive possession of the game was Miles Turner blocking Chet's 3-point shot, Chet getting the ball back, driving, and then just losing the ball out of bounds. I thought their defense was incredible, and their defense, I think, was the star of the fourth quarter. Like, there were moments where the Pacers were coming up with some empty offensive possessions. Haliburton getting the ball stolen from him. Pascal Siakam, the ball going off of him when J-Dub kind of rolls over on him. Their offense wasn't humming at its best, and it was the defensive stops that the Pacers were consistently able to get. And I think they might have figured something out in this game on how to guard them moving forward.
Yeah, I think, the number one weakness for OKC is obviously going to be their half court offense, right? Like, Shea is dominant and he's going to be able to get his shots mostly when he wants, but we saw that today. Like, if you're able to double team him effectively, and they were smart with the way they double teamed him, right? Nothing pissed me off more than stupid double teams when you're doubling from the closest defender and you could just throw out to an open 3-point shooter, but they're doubling most of the time from, a couple players away. So it's either a skip pass or multiple passes where you're able to rotate and come back. So if you're able to limit Shea in that fashion, then the half court offense gets even more difficult. But I see the comments mention it too. I think part of this is also Rick Carlisle is kind of cementing himself as like a top 3 or 4 coach in the NBA. So to, your first time in the NBA final stage, you're still, Mark's been coaching for like 5 years now for OKC compared to Rick, who's been coaching for like 20 plus years at this point. You're at such just a disadvantage. It's also just goes to show how great Rick has been, and not only offensively, this offense has been able to build, but schematically they're doing some really nice things on defense too.
The Pacers take a 2-1 series lead in the NBA Finals. We will be back on Friday nights after Game 4 and record the next podcast on Saturday because we gave you guys a near 4-hour podcast yesterday. So maybe that can marinate a little bit for you guys, give you guys a chance to listen to the entire thing, give you guys enough time. But that's going to do it for us on the live stream. Thank you guys for coming. Make sure you guys like the stream, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time.